In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did.
One of gaming's greatest games, and it's pretty difficult to play in 2022, unless you wanted to buy a physical copy for $120. Don't do that, please. This is where the Silent Hill 2 Enhanced Edition comes in. Created by an incredible team of modders who have modernized the PC version of Silent Hill, bringing higher quality amenities such as soft shadows, depth of field, and even adding new elements that we haven't seen in other Silent Hill games. Welcome to the Ultimate Modding Guide series, a guide helping siphon through the best mods on the internet to give you a better silent experience. But with this mod, I guarantee you will be anything but silent. So to TLDR it, how does this mod work? What it is, it's gonna take the existing PC experience, which has a lot of features that have been scaled back, and it is considered an inferior port because it doesn't have quality of life features like you see on the PS2, and that's why it has its price tag at the moment. Most importantly, you're going to be able to scale to whatever resolution that you like. 4K has bigger aspect ratios that cover a multitude of monitors and consoles, uses AI upscaling, and handcrafts some of the 2D assets to make it more of a polished experience, and we'll keep going into that, but it's very cool. A disclaimer, I am using a June 2021 patch on this version, and for good reason. Because of the announcement of the amazing Silent Hill 2 remake. The Enhanced Edition team has received quite a bombardment of site traffic on their website, so since they use an installer that is based on online installation, it makes it very easy to install. It's very difficult to install it just because it's going by 100 kilobytes, which is basically nothing, so you can't really install these. This isn't anyone's fault, this is pretty much out of their control, and at this moment in time, they're doing their best to rectify their mod and make it so everyone can easily download this. Alright, so by God's miracle, you got it running on your PC, but what are you going to be getting with this mod? For starters, Silent Hill was presented in a 4:3 aspect ratio, topping off at 480i on the PS2, and of course on PC, you can top it off to pretty high. I could only get it running at 800x600 on my classic retro computer. Obviously with this mod, you can raise the resolution up to 16:9 aspect ratio or 1080p. I have an ultra wide monitor and it works absolutely beautiful with that, but if you have 4K monitors, it'll work with that just as good. The team has painstakingly taken care of some of the elements in cutscenes where you are not supposed to see certain elements outside of the 4:3 box, but they've taken the time to look at each in-game cutscene, make sure that you're supposed to see what you are, and with certain elements that it's not going to really take you out, if that makes sense. On tighter corridors, it might be difficult to see that 16:9 completely stretched out, but they have taken the time to fix this and make it easier to look at, and it doesn't break you out of the immersion, which is something that I really appreciate, that level of detail. The assets are no different when it comes into that. Going into some of the menu options, when you start up Silent Hill 2, you have this beautiful splash screen that pretty much fits the size of your monitor and just looks absolutely wonderful. Backgrounds are AI upscaled or faithfully recreated to make sure that it's done properly, not just, you know, spit into an AI upscaler and just, you know, regurgitate. No, they've really taken the time to look at any artifacting, any little missed details that need to be fixed, and make sure that the rest of the experience polishes up with this. The font also reflects that by having a very nice high quality font that is very reminiscent of the original, but it doesn't take you out. It looks absolutely great, and I think it's very faithful to the original font, which surprisingly, a lot of companies don't do today. This extends to the in-game menu options as well. Pressing start allows you to drop an in-game menu, and you can really see that the menu has been scaled to 4:3, but it still takes the vicinity of your monitor, if that makes sense. So it still looks great, you still have that crisp look on the menu, and it interacts beautifully. Even some of the in-game assets, like this photo here with Mary where you can see how beautiful she is rendered in her 2D photograph. And looking into the map, it's beautiful, it's crisp, and you can see quite a lot of detail in comparison to the original PS2 or maybe the PC. You'd be surprised why these details really matter, because if you have an element that's slightly out of place, it does detract from the quality of the whole mod, and it makes it look as it's pretty inferior. So you can really tell that the team on the Enhanced Edition has really taken their time to look at every single photo, 2D element, menu option to make sure that everything is concise. This isn't an HD collection mess where you have no fog that's rendered, completely butchering the atmosphere and really taking you out of the game, because you are seeing further background assets that you weren't supposed to be seeing. The fog is such an important character and element in Silent Hill that to have that removed is pretty much a disservice to anything Silent Hill. The team has corrected this by adding a complex fog element, which gives the fog some depth and pretty close to the original PS2, if not almost verbatim. I did mention previously that some elements like depth of field are completely removed but had been fully restored, and the great scene is right here on the toilet cutscene, where you can see that the camera is focused on the urinal, but then it kind of goes out of focus and in focuses on James. And it looks pretty out of character when you're looking at this on the PC, because you're just looking at a really static look at James the entire time. And this is one of those reasons why having graphical elements like depth of field plays such a huge important role in Silent Hill, because this game really uses depth of field elements, it uses motion blur, it uses fog to not only hide certain elements of the game, but to play a drastic role in conveying certain emotions, characters, and elements that have really been taken out of the other experiences and ports of Silent Hill, but the Enhanced Edition team has beautifully integrated this back. Darkness and shadows play an important element, just like this right here. Ooh, look at that. Some individual items in the background also cast a beautiful shadow, which is what it's supposed to do in a realistic setting, and they've been restored from the original PS2, which has been absent on the PC port. The PS2 is notorious for using motion blur, and while I don't really advocate or like motion blur, this is one of those games that really needs motion blur in order to convey emotion and a lot of distress in certain scenes. And that's why the team has integrated motion blur back in order to give that emotion and convey certain meaning that was intended by the original creators. I already did touch about cutscenes, but another element I did forget to mention is how they are scaled. At first, when I did play this, I was hoping they would be nicely scaled instead of completely stretched out, but what they really did here was that the top and bottom was actually cut, because on the original PS2, you have black borders on the bottom and top. Those were effectively cut, and it's scaled to your monitor so it looks easier to look without cutting out some of the elements. Some visual aspects were cut out, but were done so in the intention of keeping what was only necessary on screen while not taking and detracting what the original designers were trying to do. So they've really taken the time and detail to put this, instead of just copy and pasting all of the 4:3 FMV cutscenes to be in 16:9 and not scaling them correctly. So that's another detail I really do appreciate. The lossy and compressed audio has been converted into a lossless quality of audio, and it sounds absolutely beautiful. This is one of those games where if you have a very detailed set of headphones, please use them, because you hear so much more in your ears than you ever will on your speakers.
In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did. In my restless dreams, I see that town, Silent Hill. You promised you'd take me there again someday, but you never did.
And it's such an intimate relationship to be playing a game like this with such beautiful visuals and auditory detail that I really haven't experienced anywhere. So this is why I'm so excited to be really traversing through this mod. You also have full 7.1 surround sound instead of the original stereo, which is always a godsend, having a more dynamic range than the original Silent Hill on PS2. But for you controller people, you have not been forgotten. Whether it's a PS5, Xbox One like I am using here, all of your controllers are fully supported. You can go into the menu and remap them any way that you like, but I do recommend that you turn on your controller before you launch the game, because at least at this patch of 2021, I haven't been able to turn on my controller and use it at the same time of launch. So make sure to turn on your controller, then launch the game, and you should have no problem playing this game using a controller. But for you masochists, you can use mouse and keyboard, which is fine, but it's not how Silent Hill 2 was intended. But if you want mouse and keyboard options, hey, no, I'm not stopping you. And that was Silent Hill Enhanced Edition. I apologize for not having the most up-to-date patch, but this is pretty much out of everyone's control, including the team, who are painstakingly trying to work to make sure this works properly. But from the previous patch, I've been loving this so much, and especially with the new remake, which looks very funky, might I add. It's nice to go back and play Silent Hill, which is a much more accessible version to play, and everyone can pay it instead of paying, what, $120 for this game, which please realistically don't do that. I would highly recommend to play something like on the PC, which is significantly better and it's easier for most people, if not all, to play. And I'll always advocate accessibility over original hardware for a lot of people, just because not everyone has the privilege to play on original hardware, and to be able to play this on whatever you do have is always the best choice, at least in my opinion. But what do you guys think? How are you going to be playing Silent Hill? Does that original PS2 blocky graphics and beautiful soft shadows call you? Or do you think the PC version with this great mod by this amazing team is calling you home? Let me know down in the comments below so we can have a great discussion. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I want to thank these guys right here, including David Davenport and Power Matt. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. If you love other mods, check them out right here. You might find something that you'll love. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I'll see you very soon.